2016 is already gearing up to be a great year for fighting game fans, with major releases in franchises like Street Fighter and Tekken, and a few kind of under-the-radar fighting games as well. One of which I'm going to be talking about today, the newest game from developer Examu, who are the creators of the Arcana Heart series, as well as they created the Aquapazza game that came out a few years back. The game combined anime characters and visual novel characters from various different series and put them together into a 2D fighter. And they're taking that same concept and came out with a new game, known as Nitro Blasterz, once again featuring anime and visual novel characters in a 2D fighting game frenzy that has a lot of really colorful and awesome animations that go along with it, and will definitely catch the eye of a lot of fighting game fans who give it a look. However, is there enough here for those fighting fan junkies, and are casual gamers gonna get enough to warrant a purchase from this newly anime-released fighter? Nitro Blasterz, Heroines of Infinite Duel, continues the great line of 2D anime-inspired fighters from this developer. They do another good job of taking a whole bunch of characters from various different franchises and putting them together, with 12 playable characters at the start, with 2 characters being DLC for a total roster of 14. And I have to say that thankfully one of those 2 downloadable content characters is actually free, so you can go ahead and grab it, with the other one unfortunately being the kind of steep price of $5.99. Now, for, I'm sure, anime and visual novel game fans, they will instantly recognize some of the characters. I guess from more casual standpoint, some of the standouts would be maybe Saber from Fate Stay Night, or Supersonico, who has really kind of exploded in popularity over the last few years. If you're one of those gamers that can appreciate the 2D animation that goes on in a fighter like this, you're definitely going to get a feast for the eyes. There's a lot of really cool, well-done animations for all the fighters in the game. And there is an overall pretty in-depth fighting game system. Of course, it's one of those ones that if you're unfamiliar with it, it's going to take a little bit to get used to. But once things start to get going in Nitro Blasterz, it can be pretty chaotic and a blast to play. Especially if you're going to be able to go up with somebody who is at the relative same skill level as you. I'm sure any fighting game fan will definitely have a lot of fun. Those familiar with Aquapazza, or even those who have just played a lot of fighters like Street Fighter, or even maybe the BlazBlue series, will feel right at home getting used to the controls. A lot of the moves are your typical kind of half circles or quarter circles, either forwards or backwards, with the various different moves in order to unleash them. Every character has a handful of special moves at their disposal, about 5 or so for each. A few of those can be done kind of as a super move, and then you also have kind of a final ultimate special for each of the character, though they're all pulled off the same exact way for each of the character. So if you're somebody who likes a variety of all kinds of weird different styles of button presses for various moves, that's not really going to be here really for you. It's pretty much all for every single one of the special moves is quarter circle forward, and then press the medium and strong attacks together. Now, there are 2 characters that have kind of a different move, one of which is kind of done as a chain at the end of another series of moves, and one of them uses one as a counter. But everybody else's, you just go that quarter circle forward twice, medium strong, and you're going to be unleashing their ultimate attack. Besides just your weak, medium, and strong attacks, you also have the E, or like Exploder move. Basically, it works as a really strong attack that you can hold in and it charges up, and then you can unleash it, or it will automatically unleash once it gets fully charged. These are pretty powerful attacks, and done at the right moments, not only will be able to catch your opponent off guard and deal a lot of damage, but also can work as a guard break. You also have typical stuff like throw, as well as you'll have dodge that you can use to kind of get out of the way of things. Each character can also use one Blaze-style attack per matchup. Going into Blaze mode causes the character to kind of like send off their opponent, knocking them away, and is a great way to kind of give you an opportunity, especially if your opponent is just beating the crap out of you. Using Blaze can usually knock your opponent back, just give you that tiny bit of space that you need to maybe finally try to turn the tables in a particular matchup. During the Blaze move, your power meter does start to charge up. The game uses a 3-bar charge system, with some moves needing 2 charges, some needing 1, and then of course for the ultimate move for each of the characters you do need a full 3 set of bars in order to unleash their special. Unfortunately, not being familiar with a lot of the visual novels that a lot of these characters come from, it was hard for me to judge if the characters are well represented according to their stories. But there were a good amount of variety to the characters. All the kind of visual novels that a lot of these characters come from are very different from one another, so they kind of come in with completely different backgrounds. So it leads itself to a decent variety of the characters. One in particular that I really ended up liking was Ethica, who is from Tokyo Necro. She uses a weird kind of chainsaw-esque blade. I'm not sure exactly, of course, what the name of it is, but it's really fun to be able to kind of only go through the opponents, but you can kind of grab them in midair. And there's a lot of different styles of these characters, and once you start mastering them and getting really good with them, there's a bunch of possibilities for the way to approach various different fights. So it definitely has a good core fighting engine amongst all the kind of anime glitz and glamour. To go along with all the main characters, there's also assist characters to help you out. At the beginning of a fight, you'll choose 2 assist characters, jump into battle, and when the fight begins, their meter will start to fill up. Of course, certain characters, depending upon pretty much how powerful their assist ends up being, will charge faster or slower than one another, so you kind of have to decide and test out and play with a lot of the different assist characters to find which ones you like to use. Usually I like to use one that was a slower charge, and then one that was also a quick charge that could try to help me get out of a tight jam at particular times. The moves that they end up unleashing also range in their usefulness. Some unleash giant laser blasts that just destroy an enemy's health if you're able to catch them off guard with it, and then other ones are kind of more simple, straightforward attack, and a few others also will do stuff like maybe charge up your meter. So there's a decent variety to the way the assist characters work, and they're from all the same various animes and different visual novels. So fans of the particular series, I'm sure, will be able to find a character, as well as some assist characters that they like to use or are just happy to see in a game. The game only has a handful of modes, unfortunately, to it, with the main one being kind of the story mode, the arcade mode, with a few various cutscenes that will play throughout it as you're working through an 8 set of matches in your typical classic fighting game arcade style, at the end of which you'll get a brief ending with that particular character, ending with a CG picture, and you can actually go back and later on check out the gallery and look through all the various pictures that you ended up unlocking via the different endings, or sometimes the promotional art, as well as a few other little tiny things are included in that gallery mode. There's also the Another Story mode, which I played through Aquapaza, and in that game when you unleashed Another Story, it was basically another set of fighting matches, but told kind of a different story. But that's not the case here with Nitro Blasterz. In fact, the Another Story mode is a visual novel, which caught me off guard. I was a bit surprised, but it's actually pretty cool for, I'm sure, fans of these series, even more so than me, just being kind of a novice to the whole thing. It is all text-based. There is no actual fighting to be had, so some people may be disappointed that this is the only other kind of major mode to the game, but I'm sure those who can get into the visual novel story that's told throughout all the various different chapters as it goes through will definitely enjoy it. And since the game is based on so many characters from various visual novels, it makes sense to kind of put them all in one little visual novel universe that is told. The only other thing, though, is unlike the arcade mode, there's no individual stories for the Another Story. It's just one story that ends up playing out. In the arcade mode, every character has their own story that goes along with it. To round out the various modes in the game, there is your kind of typical training and versus mode, as well as a score attack, which is basically arcade mode just with no story, and you're seeing how high of a score you can rack up. Though there is no way to kind of adjust rounds or difficulty for the score attack mode, though you can do that in the main story mode. You can change the various difficulty to either really hard or really easy, or adjust things like the time of the matchups and how many rounds you're doing in a particular fight. Then, of course, there's online, which works worked well. I wasn't running really into any disconnects or lag. I guess maybe I got lucky with the people I was fighting against during the course of my online play. There's also your ranked and player matches, as well as a way to kind of look at saved replays. Though I have to say, I wasn't really able to get a ranked matchup. Every time I kept trying, I wasn't able to find an opponent, though I do like the way it's set up, where you can preset the character you want, the color scheme you want for your character, as well as your assist partners and stage that you normally would pick, so it kind of speeds up that whole process if you're able to find a match. Where I was able to find matches, though, was in player matches. You can set up a room, have people fight, and when one person loses, the next person in line takes their place, and everyone can spectate the matchups as well, and that was actually a lot of fun. I got to finally see kind of more the competitive side of Nitro Blasterz, and I can see how much fun this game actually is to fight against other people. Now, of course, there are going to be people out there who aren't going to like the graphics. They're going to say it looks dated, of course, because of being the anime 2D-inspired artwork, but I thought it fit the game and the genre quite well, and there was a lot of really cool and well-done animations for the various characters and their attacks. I also enjoyed a lot of the music that I heard throughout the various modes, though it wasn't anything spectacular, and the game ran great. I didn't run into any crashes or the game slowing down, even with a lot of particles and other stuff going on. Like I said, even during my online experience, I wasn't really running into any lag or slowdown whatsoever. So overall, I definitely enjoyed my time with Nitro Blasterz, but it felt lacking in the modes. I wish there was some more unlockables, alternate costumes, or some more characters to unlock. I did find it kind of dumb, and I'm not really a big fan of when you do DLC and you have them on the screen, like when you go to arcade mode or versus mode, you can see the two locked characters. Thankfully, the one was free, but the other one being like $5.99 I think is a little bit too much, and I just don't like seeing it there. Mortal Kombat is guilty of this, and I'm sure other fighting games have done this as well, to kind of entice you to buy, but honestly, I'm just not a fan of that particular tactic. I think from a casual standpoint, there's just not enough to sink your teeth into if you're going to be buying the game at full price, though when it gets cheaper down the road, you may want to check it out if you have kind of that fighting game itch, or if you're a fan of these particular series. The story mode itself, because it's just that kind of 8-fight story mode, is a little bit short, and the other story mode, while cool being that visual novel, only took me about 30 or 40 minutes to read through, though of course that'll depend on how quickly you're able to read through everything. From the hardcore fighting game fan standpoint, though, it's a great engine, some really unique characters, and it is satisfying to learn their moves and figure out what can combo into one another to make an overall fun experience and some really, really competitive matchups. There just, I think, wasn't enough there for the casual fan. I do have to praise, though, Marvelous, formerly known as Xseed, as I always love picking up their games and I will always support them because, of course, they are one of the few companies out there that still do full-blown manuals, and I will always kind of show these off every time I end up playing through any of these games. They have some great color illustrations of all the characters and their various different movesets, as well as some other information. And if you're wondering, this is a full English manual. A lot of manuals, even if they are available in certain games, end up being like English, Spanish, and maybe French all together in one. So I definitely love Xseed, now Marvelous, for doing this, so kudos to them. I'm glad I was able to pick up the game. My final score, though, is going to end up being a 6 out of 10. I just wish there was a little bit more that I could have really gotten into. I wish there was kind of just some more modes, just a little bit more, and it would have gotten a higher score, though I do think the overall competitive gameplay was definitely a lot of fun. But anyway, guys, that will wrap up this review of Nitro Blasterz Heroines of Infinite Doom for the PS4. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.